Welcome to a special edition of Your South Florida. I'm Pam Giganti, coming to you from Miccosukee Village in the Florida Everglades. I'm joined by William Popeye Osceola, the Secretary for the Miccosukee Business Council, and my co-host for today's episode.
Thanks for having me, Pam, and welcome. It's always great to share our story, especially here in the heart of our community.
Well, we are honored to be here, and today we are diving deep into the rich history and vibrant culture of the Miccosukee Tribe, a community of over 600 members living here in South Florida. And who better to help us tell that story than you, Popeye?
It's my honor, Pam. The Miccosukee have a long history of storytelling, music, and the arts, and fighting to protect our native lands in the Everglades. And now our young people are finding ways to carry our traditions into the future while navigating modern life.
And Popeye, it's that blend of preserving the past while embracing the future that's so powerful. It really highlights the resilience and adaptability of the Miccosukee people. In fact, that's exactly what we touched on earlier when I had the chance to sit down with both you and Talbert Cypress, who is chairman of the Miccosukee Business Council. We talked about the tribe's history, its enduring traditions, and the exciting path forward being created for the community.
This gator is ironic because his name is Tiny. As you can see, clearly he's not. And he used to be alive. He used to be in our old alligator pit before we got it refurbished and redone. We had a hard time disconnecting from Tiny, and we just had to make sure we acknowledged our history, and we brought him up to the future now with us.
And here he is.
Exactly.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's great having both of you here today. Really appreciate your time. Popeye, I want to start with you. We are here on the lovely Miccosukee Indian Village on the Miccosukee Reservation. Talk a little bit about the significance of this land and why it is so important to you and your people.
We're only here because of this land. It protected us, it saved us during the war times. In fact, this village we're in right now, there's actually some very important meetings that were held here back in the day when we were trying to become a federally recognized tribe. And this village used to actually belong to a family, but once we became a tribe, they allowed the tribe to use it to make sure we could do outreach to people who weren't living in the Everglades, non-natives. So it's a pretty significant place we're at right now.
Talbert, let's talk about the history of the Miccosukees and the Seminoles. We hear so much about the Seminole Indians in the state of Florida. Talk a little bit about both of those tribes, the significance, and is there collaboration between the two tribes?
Well, the history goes back to pretty much the Seminole Wars, where we banded together with the Seminoles. Seminole is actually derived from a Spanish word, Semirón, and it became Seminole to the Seminole people. So it's actually not an Indian word, but they lumped us all in as Seminoles during the Seminole Wars. And so when we came down here, they were recognized back in 58 or somewhere around there, in the 50s?
57.
57. And then we requested from the government that we wanted to be recognized as our own tribe because we had some cultural and political differences. When that happened, the two tribes pretty much split. We were recognized as a separate tribe. And right now, we share family and all that, so we have a really good relationship with the Seminole tribe now. Excellent communication and collaboration on different things too, especially the environment.
Which is so important. I know that's really been a focus for you, Popeye, lately, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But you're the youngest member of the Business Council. You were a teacher for a really long time. You're an artist. You've been really focused on the youth and education. Talk a little bit about the importance of working with the young people and teaching them your culture, but the juxtaposition of living in the modern world. How do you do that?
It's of the utmost importance that we focus on the young people because they're the only reason we're going to have a future. It's the legacy that we need them to carry on. And I know growing up, I remember my grandparents being very involved when I had questions. They helped give me a lot of guidance, and I see how I benefited from that guidance. So I had to make sure we passed it on to the next generation. That's the only reason we're here, because we have that in our tradition. Young people teach old people, and it's a whole lifelong endeavor. So you always have to stay connected throughout our whole life. We actually have a embassy fellowship program right now that we started recently. And that is so high school and college graduates in the tribe, we can train them a little bit more in depth on the tribe's history, how our government functions, how tribes have functioned with the American government. So that way they can speak upon the tribe's history, whether it's to the general public or to elected officials or whoever needs to know more about the tribe so we can get done what we need to get done. We're trying to make sure these young people realize they have a place and that they are of value.
Talk a little bit about the relationship between the Miccosukees and the Gators.
So from time to time, hard times, sometimes gators will be hunted, so that way there's sustenance for us. As they built the highway, when our people were hunting, they noticed, hey, these non-natives driving past, they're stopping to watch us hunt the gator. That's when we started doing alligator wrestling, which was adapted from traditional gator hunting techniques, but obviously so it could keep the gator alive now. And that's where this whole sport of alligator wrestling started, which is really more of a show, not so much a sport. But it gives us an opportunity to stay connected with nature and to teach others outside of here how nature is, because these guys are incredibly misunderstood. And it's also a reminder that no matter how much you think things are in control, nature is still able to one-up you.
As the Miccosukee have been in this area and in the Everglades, the modern world out there has continued to evolve. So talk about what some of the biggest challenges have been for the tribe and the rest of, say, South Florida, for example.
Well, a lot of it's encroachment and also water quality, right? And I think that's become a bigger issue now as more people have moved to Florida. They're beginning to recognize the importance of the Everglades. That's where they get their drinking water from and everything. So I think people are starting to hear our voice a little more on that. You know, we've been raising the alarm for a long time, and it's good that people are starting to listen now, and we're ready to educate them as well.
We're putting more effort into outreach and educating government officials because there's a lot of important decisions that are about to be made. For example, the wilderness designation of Big Cypress, that's an issue that's ongoing. Wilderness, the way this country approaches it, basically says that, oh, this piece of land we want to designate as wilderness, no habitation by people, no impact by people, basically saying that there's no history of humanity there. And we've been living in Big Cypress for centuries. My grandmother, Peggy, she's almost 100 years old. She lives in the camp still. And to think like they want to disconnect her and us from that land and act like we haven't been present, like she was born out there, not in a hospital. It's important that we let people know what's really at stake because a lot of people don't understand that. If we don't have Big Cypress accessible to us, that's where we hold our ceremonies. That's where we get medicine, that's where we get resources to build our homes, our traditional homes, our chickees and things like that. If the Everglades is not helped, if it's not cleaned up, those aquifers, they get polluted. Millions and millions of South Floridians are gonna be out of water. So that's like high level stuff we have to keep in mind. It's not just us we're trying to protect and benefit from, it's the outside population as well that we're looking out for in the end.
Talk about how important Miccosukee Day was to the tribe.
It's acknowledging our existence and our history, which is often undercutted in modern times. I mean, a lot of people don't even know that we're still around. So for the mayor to make this type of change, and especially the other county commissioners, it's nice because it's a culmination of a lot of the work our people have been doing, those who were here before us, and all the outreach and education. It's also a nice indicator that we're moving past mythology and starting to get into actual history. That's always the most important thing to us, acknowledge the actual history.
Let's talk a little bit about the misconceptions that you think the outside non-native world has with the Miccosukee tribe.
And the most common one, and that's why we have a village, is because they think we live in teepees. Or actually, you'd be surprised, because I've done a lot of traveling through the country and people are like, oh, what are you? I always try to describe myself as a human first, and people don't like that. So when I get to describing myself as Miccosukee, it's like, oh, you're native? And sometimes you'll be like, oh, we thought you were all dead.
What?
So it's to that level,
Wow.
Yeah. And we have a different way of philosophy, the way we look at life. For example, we have gaming, but that's only so we can fund everything we're doing here as far as trying to protect the environment. It's actually in our Constitution. We have to conserve the land and resources for future generations. So that's what everything is going towards. And a lot of people think we're doing gaming just because we want money. It's like, no, we need that to keep doing the important stuff. That's just the means to an end.
You are an artist, Popeye.
Somewhat, yeah.
No, you are. I've seen your work. Talk a little bit about Miccosukee culture and some of the artistry that is on display that is really quite beautiful.
Well, I like to think in some ways art saved us because that's what you really saw are people developing when they were left in peace here after the war times. That's when you saw stuff like patchwork being developed, palmetto dolls, beading and stuff like that came a little bit later through trading and whatnot. We teach that to our students at the school in the Miccosukee Language Arts Department because we want to make sure they have that skill. Because like if you look at like the patchwork here, this was developed out here in the swamps and it's informed by our existence out here in the Everglades.
Trent, we're here with your beautiful beading, this beautiful work that you do. What inspires you?
The creative freedom, you know, to take something, put it in your own hands, make something out of it. And just the colors and everything, it kind of, you know, get your mind going, like, what's the process? How am I going to go about this? And, you know, you just see it in your head and it just goes from there. This is a daisy chain, and this is what we learned back in like 2nd, 3rd grade, the simplest form you could do. But later on, I kind of added this to make it, you know, a little more different, make it pop.
You were also mentioning that within clans, you cannot marry one another, even if you're not necessarily blood related. So when you're in a clan, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a blood relation, correct?
That's correct. It's more of a cultural connection, which is honestly more important in some ways than the blood part, because clans is what keeps our culture alive. If you have a clan, you're able to immerse yourself in the traditional ways. So if you want to do medicine, if you want to dance, you want to sing, you need to make sure that you're keeping this clan lineage alive. And we get those from our mothers, so that also keeps that connection going.
We do know that the Miccosukee are a matriarchal society. Talbert, talk a little bit about that and the role of the female.
The women have a lot of power in our tribe. There's always going to be a head of clan, and that woman makes most of the decisions for the family and the decisions that affect the tribe as well. So, we always rely on the women's opinions on that and their decisions.
Yeah, actually, when I ran for this office, I did flip a coin, but before I flipped the coin, I checked with my grandma if I should even entertain this idea.
She was cool with it?
Yeah. She's always been a good advisor for me.
That's nice.
My mom told me not to, but I don't listen.
What is a really important message that you would like non-natives to know?
For us, the tribe, I think it's evident in everything that we've accomplished that the tribe always adapts. We're just going to keep on going, and we're always going to be here, and we always want to be good neighbors to the people in South Florida. So provide jobs, give back to the economy, and fight for the Everglades as well, for them, not just for us.
History tells us what we've done and what we should do and what we shouldn't do, and American history is intrinsically tied in with Native history, because so much has been an action or reaction to our existence. But when you prioritize American mythology over history, that basically leaves us completely out of the book. That's why we're doing this right now, so people can get a better understanding. You have people living in Miami-Dade or Collier County, Broward, all their life, but they don't know anything really about Seminole or Miccosukee other than, they both have gaming. So to me, that speaks a lot on the work that we need to do, and not just us, but as a people. We need to acknowledge reality, get on the same page so we can move forward together.
Popeye, I know the Everglades are such a big part of your tribe's history.
That's right, Pam. The Everglades have been our home for generations, and we manage over 300,000 acres here. And it's so much more than just land to us, it's a part of who we are. And it's our responsibility to protect it for future generations.
And the tribe just received a $15 million grant to continue that important work, right?
Yes, and this grant will help us face new challenges, new environmental challenges, while honoring our connection to the land. And now the next generation is stepping up to carry that legacy forward.
Let's take a look at how the Miccosukee tribe is fighting to preserve the Everglades for the future.
I come from Panther Clan. We're basically one big family living out in the Everglades. Living out here is very relaxing and cleansing, especially to be part of my people and part of my family. I drive airboats with my family, so driving out there in the water, hunting and fishing, it gives me a view of life, and it makes me mature and grow up than living out in the city. There's nothing like the Everglades. Historically, it's pretty sad to see how a lot has died out, but for it to keep going and that resistance is something to hang on to. We have these prehistoric alligators, these birds, all kinds of wading birds, and deer and bears. My ancestors must have lived a really long and hard life, so there's a reason why they stayed for thousands of years, and it's something to hang on to.
The Everglades is in many ways like the heart of this ecosystem. It is the source of the freshwater supplies for about half or more of South Florida. It is the source of drinking water. It is an incredible carbon sink, which to a great deal offsets many of the emissions that are being produced in South Florida. The tribal government puts a great deal of emphasis on protecting the natural ecosystem. Within the Constitution of the Miccosukee Tribe and the very preamble of the Constitution, there is a duty for the tribal government to conserve the Everglades. Within the Central Everglades, there are quite a few threats to the tribal way of life and to the ecosystem which the tribe manages. There's a lot of polluted water that is coming south from Lake Okeechobee and from the agricultural areas which surround it. The tribe was successful in its litigation in the mid-2010s in enforcing its own water quality standards. Additionally, there are really high water levels covering the central Everglades. This is not natural. It is the product of artificial management, which is raising these water levels and swamping traditional tribal lands. There is a great deal of invasive species which are beginning to colonize in the Everglades. These are disrupting the native species foodways and settlement patterns. There are threats to Miccosukee's continued access to the natural ecosystem in here, particularly within Big Cypress National Preserve, where the federal government has proposed a potential wilderness designation, which could restrict tribal access to 147,000 to 192,000 acres. All tribes are sovereign nations. This means sometimes when there is another sovereign, like the state of Florida, that has not taken measures to protect the ecosystem, the tribe can take its own measures within the limits of its sovereignty to affect those changes. And oftentimes this does mean going above and beyond what the federal or state government would do in order to protect the Everglades.
I work for Miccosukee Fish and Wildlife, our own fish and wildlife for the tribe. And on a typical day, I would always be tasked with field work and putting that field work into data so it comes back to my tribe and tells us all about our environment. We live close to these animals, especially the alligators, so that's a real big indicator for us. Deers are our big major focus of our department, especially our deers giving birth on the island still, or food resources for the deers, because that directly comes back to my people. A lot of our Florida trees, native Florida trees for our medicine, are on the radar of being threatened, so we try to mash everything together and see how can we fix this problem and what to tell the tribe and how we're going to put this in good, valuable data for the government.
The Everglades is a vast space. It is a space which was historically effectively stewarded by indigenous peoples alone. But for a variety of reasons, there are not quite as many native folks left in the state of Florida. And so we do need to depend on partners, whether those be nonprofit organizations or federal and state agencies, because these are the entities that often hold the purse strings, have the levers of power, have donors and organizing capacity that can help motivate issues and get issues in front of Congress, in front of other decision makers. There is not a single thing that has happened in the Everglades over the past, 20 or 30 years, which has not substantively been the product of coalition building. The problem is when those coalitions do not include the tribe. And so we work really hard to make sure that the tribe has its voice centered in Everglades restoration.
Someone has to get their hands dirty, and it has to be someone that is native or has that blood to be connected to the environment. I love animals. I have always loved animals and the outdoors. And when I came down to the res and I started learning my cultural way, it really tied in to what I want to be and who I am. However I turn, if I look away from my tribe or look away from the outdoors, it comes back to me because my blood, I'm always going to be connected to the outdoors and to this land.
The young folks out here are really invested in Everglades restoration because it's the ecosystem that they're going to inherit, that they're going to raise their children and grandchildren in. And I think many folks who are growing up here have heard stories from their elders about, vast flocks of migratory birds coming through, of just plentiful deer and game. And today you don't see that. And there is sort of an inflection point that we have reached where if major actions aren't taken, there won't be much left for the next generation. And I think they're realizing that, and they're getting invested in this. The tribe really appreciates the funding support provided by the federal government through the EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, which was recently awarded to the tribe this past month. It is $14.999 million, which is a really large sum of money. A great deal of this will go towards fleet conversion to electric vehicles. Another large chunk of that money is going to expand the EV fast charging infrastructure. Additionally, there were funds set aside in that grant for green building materials to help support tribal home construction efforts. I think a lot of people have to come together to ensure that the Everglades is resilient to climate change. And so we have to listen to the indigenous people that are charting a very, very clear course forwards, a course towards restoration, a course towards restoring traditional water levels, species diversity, water quality. Miccosukee has been on the front lines of all of these fights for decades, if not centuries, if not millennia. But there is truly no substitute for indigenous stewardship of indigenous lands. There is no Everglades without indigenous people at the heart of the Everglades. And so we really have to rally behind the Miccosukee Tribe and its partners as we move into a decade of increasing threats to the Everglades ecosystem and to the health of our state and its waters.
My message to non-natives, please come learn our history. We'll show you how to save our environment and save our homeland the traditional and respectful way. We're always open to teach our history and our culture, because we'll always stay here and we will never die out.
And now, as we wrap up our time with the Miccosukee Tribe, we want to share something new and special with you that's bringing Miccosukee youth and outsiders together. It's a new trail skate park nestled in the heart of the Everglades, which has been a passion project for you, right, Popeye?
That's right, Pam. I grew up skating in this community, and it really kept us as a community, especially for us younger folks. In fact, it was often the only place we would feel comfortable giving just positive reinforcement. So I wanted to make sure that we had this available for our youth today. And that's what makes it a unique space and more than just a skate park. It's a sanctuary for young natives to connect and express their passion for the sport.
All right, let's take a look now at how the skate park is giving young Miccosukee a place to thrive while also allowing them to share their culture and the beauty of the Everglades with the wider community.
So growing up on the reservation, you always see your brothers, cousins, and all that doing new hobbies, and you always think that's so cool. And skateboarding was the hobby here. You saw it everywhere. The Trail Skate Park project was spearheaded by me and aided by Trent and Randall Osceola. This is the first stepstone of our new community. So they wanted to show the community that everything's gonna be nice and that we're in good hands. So they wanted to make this spot look super pretty, not only for the tribe, but for everybody who comes by.
I mean, there's skate parks all over town. I've been a lot off the reservations, but it's like, you don't get like a view like this too, where you just can look and you just see the Everglades right behind you and it looks amazing. We had a skate park back then, but it was nothing like this. And especially for the generation coming up now, there's some people who, if they really want to hone in their skills and get really good at skateboarding, it could definitely be done here. They have everything they need now to elevate their skill levels here.
This is supposed to be like an all-around park, beginner to expert. You can be anything, you can ride whatever you want. When the park was first done, it was just white with black roads. During the right sunlight, probably like right now, it'd be blinding. So that was one of the first problems. That was getting art or anything put on here just to kind of reduce that.
My team came in and rocked the bowl again and hit some vertical spaces that weren't going to have that much wear and tear. Behind me is sort of like that anchor piece that you're greeted with when you first arrive here. It's the Trail Skate Park sign, which has some cypress trees and, of course, the legendary skunk ape that's flanked with like a heron and just some nice typography. So when you arrive, it says Trail Skate Park, and then you enter the park and start ripping. I think what was really cool about this project was that the youth who actually skates this park had a big imprint on the marks that were actually made. At each of the public hearings that we had leading into it, we had voices saying like it would be cool to represent the different tribes here. but also we don't have to be so buttoned up and formal about it. Here in the bowl, one of the things that we were really focusing on was the utility of it. So when this was originally painted, it was way too bright. It's super sunny out here, so the skaters wanted something to identify where they were in the bowl. So what we did was just line the edge of it with different icons and characters that represented where we are and the different clans here. On the heels of our project, Ray slid in and started matching the sunset with these beautiful gradients that you can see behind me.
Naturally, being in the Everglades, I wanted to emulate what surrounds us and bring back in what is actually around us. So having these marshes full of sawgrass and birds and these sunset colors, these gradients that kind of go up. As a skater, you feel as if you're flowing with the direct park as long as you're kind of following the sunset gradient. It was a group of 20 kids who would come out, my parents, my best friends, my assistants. It was truly a group effort from everyone in order to make something this beautiful happen. And to see many of them know that their addition to this park will last and stand the test of time, I really saw how into it that they could become so that they could feel a part of their own community. This is their park, and I wanted them to feel as involved as they could.
A lot of the visitors will come just because they love the Everglades, but none of them have actually ever been into the actual Everglades. They'll just drive along 41, see everything from the bridge. But once they're here and they're all set up and ready to start skating, they'll tell me they have like this brief moment where they just listen to nature. They never get that. I think just giving people this exposure that they need, that this is the only place in the world that we need to preserve it, I think that's like the best thing ever. When it came to allowing visitors to come by, non-natives to be specific, that was always my intention with this. I love seeing new faces, meeting new people, where they're from. It's so cool just seeing their style.
Then that way they'll know we're still here, we still exist, and we're just like you. I like to skate, you like to skate. There doesn't have to be this barrier where people think they're not welcome here. We're happy that people take interest in the Everglades, in our tribe, our skate park. They come through and see us and hope they realize we're people like them too.
The way we operate now is Monday to Friday is usually tribal members. They take reins. Saturday and Sunday, everyone's welcome to come. We're open from sunrise to sunset. We ask that you just take care of everything, take care of each other, and just have fun.
Popeye, thank you so much for being with us today.
It was my pleasure, and you're welcome back anytime. For more information on the Miccosukee Tribe and Village, please visit miccosukee.com.
And for more stories about your community, visit southfloridapbs.org/YSF. I'm Pam Giganti.
And I'm Popeye.
And as always, thank you so much for watching. For more about our South Florida community, like, subscribe, and click the video below.